Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And I was not expecting to like this movie at all. And I know you're thinking, well, why? It's not like an MCU movie where, you kind of know that it's going to be like you're eating McDonald's, or a DC movie where, it's going to be kind of like eating Burger King. It's like this is its own thing. It's a property that hasn't really been utilized as much as it probably could be in the movie sphere of entertainment. And, why'd you think this movie was going to be bad? Well, I thought the trailer looked terrible. I thought that the marketing for the movie, the way that it just looked really bad. I mean, it looked like it was going to be on another level of bad. And I don't really know why. It seems kind of funny now, because then I watched the movie and I have a completely different opinion. But it just looked like it was going to be the worst thing I've ever seen. And I don't know if it's like the costumes, I have no idea, but it looks so bad. And somehow it is one of those times where it's completely the opposite of what you thought it was going to be, in terms of it is not a bad movie in any way, shape, or form. Well, it's got some bad elements, it's got a lot of flaws, but it's in no way like a bad movie. And I'm really surprised by it, because I was expecting to do like a rant. I was expecting for this to be like a really negative video, but the movie was good. So I just can't do that. And so it's like I have to start from square one with my thoughts on this movie. And, it just, right off the bat, it opens up and with this kind of funny scene. I mean, there's a lot of jokes in this movie that kind of fall flat. And then there's a lot of other jokes in the movie that are really, really funny and good. And it starts off, and I love the way that this movie looks. It has a very dynamic, I'm not going to say like colorful, but it has a really creative look to it. The way that everything, all the different environments have their own unique style, and they all look like they should. The castles, they look pretty cool. All the settings actually look like they should in a fantasy movie like this. They don't look terrible. They don't look fake and phony like the sets in Ant-Man 3. And so that's going to kind of be my basis of comparison for this movie, because I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. I wouldn't really know much about it. However, in comparing this to another family movie that came out this year, it is worthwhile to compare this to Ant-Man 3, because that movie looked good and was terrible. This movie was exactly the opposite. It looked terrible and it was really good. And so it starts off, and these two characters are in prison. You got Chris Pine. And here's another thing that was going against this movie. I hate Chris Pine with a passion. I can't stand him. There's just something about him that just seems like he's like a douchebag persona. That's why I kind of don't like Hugh Grant and some things he does, because he just has this unlikable persona that you just can't look past when they're acting in a movie even. But once again, with both of them, they both proved me wrong in this movie. So I was kind of like, I don't know, it was almost like being in the Twilight Zone and wondering, like, why is this movie good? Like, I really don't know how they did it. I think that they did a really good job. And in talking about this prison sequence, it starts right off the bat with a nut kick or punch, whatever. So this is all going to be spoilers. I mean, there's not even really much to say if I didn't talk about spoilers, so that's why I'm going to get straight into them. You have this main female character, she's Michelle Rodriguez, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I have no idea the names of any of these characters. Like, I think the magician's name was Simon, and then I think that Hugh Grant was Uncle Forge, but other than that, I just got out of the movie, and I literally can't remember any of these characters' names. So it's not to say that, like, oh, that's a sign that it's bad. It's just, for some reason, all the names and things just flew past my head. So there's a troll that's inside this prison cell with the main two characters, and I guess the troll was gonna rape her or something, and then she's sitting there eating a baked potato, and she puts it down and she just beats him up and kicks him in the balls. And I kind of had a bad feeling at that point, because it felt like, ugh, this is what we're starting the movie on, with this kind of weird. I mean, if you think about it too, if the troll succeeded, Chris Pine, he's just sitting there watching. He didn't even really step in to help or anything, because he just knew that she was so much more badass than he was. And that was part of the main problem with this movie. Even though it was good, there were 2 or 3 main issues that, sort of, they kept on nagging at the movie as it went on. Like, it's almost like you're eating like a meal, and there's that one element on the plate that is really bad, and you want to eat it so that you're polite, but you don't want to eat it because it's gross. And so there were a couple of elements, and one of those main ones, which they even talked about before the movie even was out. The people who made this movie said that they like to emasculate the male characters, and it really felt like that. All the male characters, they were all useless and weak and stupid, and it pretty much the entire time. And then the female characters, they were all like just flawless, badass characters. Even though they got into trouble a couple of times, they were never really in any danger whatsoever. There was this one male character who wasn't really emasculated, and he was, I don't know, some sort of like a knight or something, or guard of some underground thing. I don't know what he was. He was like a knight, and he was in armor and stuff, and I don't think that he could die. Like, I wasn't really sure of, like, who he was or what was going on with him. I swear I watched the movie. I swear. It's just, I don't know. It's just some of the stuff, it just completely flew past me, and I don't know. He's like the guy of the like, that's what this stuff kind of sounds like to me. Like, I really can't even, like, put into words what this person was. He would, like, talk to people before they died or something, or I'm not really sure. But he was like the only male character who wasn't completely, like, trash. The main character, Chris Pine, he is so trash. He is just it's hard to take him seriously. He is very much a boring leading man persona in 2023. Where he has some heart because he loves his daughter, but of course he abandoned her for some years, and but at the same time he's just completely useless, and he makes fun of himself. Everyone else in the movie makes fun of him. He's just a laughing stock. And so it's really hard to take these male characters seriously when they go into battle and they're like strategizing and saying like, do this, do that, oh, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, because you're thinking this character is just complete trash, and he's not anything. Like, I wouldn't trust a word that he says because he's just a laughing stock. And meanwhile, you have Michelle Rodriguez. She basically has no point in the movie which she suffers whatsoever. And she's a badass. She's got big hulking muscles. They're bigger than the main characters. She's just so much better than him in every way, shape, or form. And you're thinking, why couldn't they just give Chris Pine some good moments where he was badass? Because there was no point in the movie anywhere where Chris Pine was cool. He did a good job acting. All the acting in this movie was good for the most part. All the actors played these characters to a T. But the problem was that you could see underneath the story, these are some weak men. And the women, the female characters, they are strong, they're empowered, they can do anything, they can do everything. And it's just kind of getting ridiculous at this point of where, you have a movie and it's the scale is just so off balanced. It's kind of like the opposite of a Michael Bay movie where the women in, his movies are basically walking sex dolls. And, well, in this movie, the male characters are practically like walking sex dolls. And the reason why it was good, though, despite all of this issue, is that the acting was good, the dialogue was good for the most part, and the story was good. All the other elements, except for if you saw underneath everything, these guys were weak the whole movie. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was so cartoony and weird and kind of like, I don't know, kind of uncomfortable to watch. And then also, another weak point of the movie, which I know I said that it was good, but I just want to get the weak points out of the way so that then I can talk about the good stuff. The movie had a pretty goofy last act. It got to the point to where I was just kind of like, I don't know, it was like watching just CGI clutter on screen at the end, which was kind of frustrating because the rest of the movie, you could tell what was going on, everything looked good, the action looked good, but by the end it was kind of hard to see what was going on through all this bad CGI. And part of the reason why I forgive that is because it seemed like the people who made this movie knew that the CGI looked bad in certain areas, and so they kind of utilized it to their advantage in certain jokes. And so that they had this one really funny part where they have a hologram of Chris Pine, and he's making funny faces, and he's playing this instrument. I don't know what it's called, a ukulele, I think. I think that's what it is, but it might have some medieval name that I'm just not aware of in this universe, or whatever. They knew that the CGI was bad, so they like started tampering with this computer-generated image of Chris Pine, and it was really hilarious. But it also hurt the movie in some instances where it was just really goofy and really over the top, and I couldn't really tell what was going on. It was like just having background noise. Despite all that, those are the two main issues for me, and some of the jokes were, they fell flat. Despite all that, this was a good movie. I mean, I think that this is a good family movie. I think that kids would like it. I think that even though you can see that the male characters are pretty weak, I don't think that it's terrible in terms of that. Like, there's a lot worse agenda movies out there. And the main thing was that this movie was so much better than Ant-Man 3. You know, the music in this movie was really fantastic. The music was the best part of the movie. I mean, the music was really, really good. It was actually better than what this movie deserved. Like, it was music that was so good, I could probably just listen to the music all by itself. Like, I was really not expecting for a soundtrack that was this on point. Like, the music elevated the movie in practically every scene ever, the whole time. So the music was perfect. And another thing is that these characters that you get to know, you know, you have four main characters. You have Chris Pine, the loser father who abandoned his daughter, and he's got to get her back from the evil uncle. You have Michelle Rodriguez, the badass warrior. And then you have Sophia Lillis, another kind of badass warrior. And her character in particular did not work for me in some places because she started off and she was like really kind of like full of herself, and she's pretending like she's just, I don't know, like there's this magician character, Simon, and Simon's not in her league because he doesn't have any confidence, and you know, just the way that she acted was very stuck up. And then when it came down to the fighting, you know, she wasn't always as badass as she made herself out to be. So I guess these characters are pretty, it didn't feel that way to me. Like, and especially with Michelle Rodriguez, she was the best character in the movie. She was the strongest character. She did the best job acting, and it felt like everyone else couldn't really meet her level. And I don't know if it's just because of the fact that she's the best actress in the movie, but it was really like, it was glaring how strong she was in comparison to all the other characters. And then you have Simon the magician. He was he was a typical weak character who isn't very good at magic, and you know, he's got to hone in on his powers, and he's got to have confidence, and you know, he was another weak character. The difference is that I thought that the actor did such a good job that, you know, he kind of elevated this bad character. You know, like, I really think they did a good job casting this movie, because this group of four people, they had really good chemistry with each other, and you believed that they were a good team. You believed that they could defeat evil together. And in a lot of instances in these modern movies, there's no chemistry between the characters. You know, they're just, oh, look, they cast these four different people who they can put their names on the posters. It's like, no, that's not what it's like here. Here, you can see that they definitely paid attention to how well these people would work together in the movie, despite the power imbalances between the males and the females. And so it also kind of starts off to where you can tell that they're definitely modeling themselves after Guardians of the Galaxy, because they have a scene that's sort of reminiscent to Star-Lord, and he's talking to the I don't know, the bad guy people, and you know, he's kind of saying who he is and everything. And they have a scene, they even kind of made it look like Guardians of the Galaxy, and Chris Pine is saying his whole backstory. And I thought that this was actually a really good scene, a really funny scene, because he keeps on wanting to talk about this Jonathan character, and then he uses Jonathan to like jump out the window and escape with Michelle Rodriguez, and that was a really funny and good part. And that was the part after the nut kick in the opening 5 minutes. That was the part where I was like, oh shit, this is actually going to be a good movie. And it got so much better from then on, and I really enjoyed the rest of the film. I mean, it was an adventure. It had a lot of good heart-filled moments near the end. I think that the villains were pretty good, although they were kind of weak as well. You know, part of the reason why everything was weak was because a lot of the story was been there, done that, cliche. We have to get this plot device, so we have to go here, and there will be this badass character who helps us, and then kind of leaves the movie, and then all the characters will talk about their problems, and we'll get to know them, and it'll be like, oh, how are they going to defeat the bad guys at the end? But again, despite all that, it is a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's not a very good movie. It's just a good movie. So it's really like in the middle. Like, I could go either way, but I actually did like it. And I would watch it again, too. I don't know what really much else to say, honestly. It was kind of hard doing this review because I don't know any of the names of the characters or any of the locations or it's hard sometimes to review movies, and it would be like somebody who never saw a Marvel movie watching a Marvel movie and being like, oh, there's that one guy and that one guy in that one place there. But there were a lot of good jokes in the movie too. You know, the worst jokes in the movie were all the jokes that were aimed at Chris Pine. You know, there were so many jokes in this movie where they were just kind of like, oh, look, Chris Pine is an idiot. Ha 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 ha. Chris Pine is stupid. Ha 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 ha. Those were weak jokes. But then you had the really good jokes. Like there was this one where the badass knight character, they're joking about how like, oh look, he's just gonna walk away because he's leaving the movie now, and he walks in such a straight line, and it's like, oh no, he's coming up on a rock, and oh no, he just walks right over it. That was a really funny joke. And then there was another one where the badass knight was talking about how in order to cross this place to get to the plot device, you have to go right and left, and then you have to do this and that, and all of a sudden this whole place that they were supposed to take this complicated route, all of a sudden it just collapses into pieces. And I like that because there were a lot of moments in this movie that really felt like they were laughing at themselves. They were laughing at the concepts of just, I don't know, like the ridiculousness of things. And so, again, all the criticisms in this movie, they're all like equally balanced by like the good things. So I know that this review has been kind of all over the place, but I'm just really thrown off by how much I like the movie. I mean, it was good. It was it. I don't know. I would have hated it if it was bad. I swear. I swear, if this movie was bad in any way, shape, or form, you guys would have known. I would not have sat here and lied and said Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is a good movie. And why is it called Honor Among Thieves? Well, because it's the main two characters, they are thieves. And the movie is all about how they're trying to steal this tablet so that they can bring the main character's wife back to life. And so that's kind of another similarity to Guardians of the Galaxy, is that the movie's all about these characters stealing something from the bad guys, and how are they going to do it, how are they going to pull off this heist, and then they end up having to play in these medieval games together. That was pretty cool at the end. And then there was a great part at the end. Probably my favorite part was when the magician kind of became the main villain. Because I was kind of worried that Hugh Grant was going to be the main villain. But they kind of reveal that he's like the puppet of this red magician woman. And they have this final battle with her. And I thought it was a really great final battle. In contrast to the kind of some of the more cartoony elements that came before it. And then they kind of ripped off the Avengers a little bit because they had this giant owl monster come, and he picks up the red magician and just like smacks her into the ground like a million times. And it was very reminiscent of Loki being smashed all over the place by the Hulk. And so, maybe the people who made this movie, maybe they tried to look at all these other family movies that were action-packed, adventure comedy movies, and they looked at those movies and said, what makes those movies work? What makes those movies good? And they took all those things and they applied it to Dungeons and Dragons. Now, the one big thing that I can't answer is how good of a Dungeons and Dragons movie is it? Because I've never played it, so I wouldn't know. I did, however, there was this one movie that I saw years back, and it was like a mockumentary about these guys who played Dungeons and Dragons together. It had the father from Home Alone, and I think it was like one of his last movies or something, and I don't know, that was a weird movie. But that's basically the extent of knowledge I have about Dungeons and Dragons. So I really can't tell you if this is a good adaptation of the board game. I can simply say, though, that I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, despite the major problems that I felt. And by the way, the whole male-female imbalance kind of got less as in the third act of the movie, and so by the third act it actually felt more balanced, and it felt like, okay, all of these characters have problems. It's not just Chris Pine the weakling. But still, I mean, it started off so glaring and so I don't know how to say it, like inflammatory, is that the right way to say it? It just kind of weird. So anyways, I would highly recommend seeing this movie. I think I would say it's highly worth the time and money to see it in theaters if you can. And yeah, and so in terms of a review, food review, this is hard. No, it's not. I already knew the food rating before I even began. The constant image that I got watching this movie was, what if you took a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos, which is my favorite kind of Dorito, my favorite kind of chip, I think. Cool Ranch Doritos and Cheetos, I think, might be my favorite You take a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos and you just stuff your face until you get to the very bottom. And then you open up another bag and you stuff your face with those Cool Ranch Doritos. And then somebody else comes in the room and says, okay, it's dinner time. And the reason why I say that is because I kind of had this experience with a friend back in elementary school. I went over to his house and we played a bunch of video games and we ate like 2 full bags of Cool Ranch Doritos. And then the dad was like, okay, it's dinner time. I guess we're have some pizza from Papa John's. And then we just kind of ate 1 slice of pizza each because we were so full from eating all these Cool Ranch Doritos. And that's kind of like what this movie is for me. It is just a fun time. It is it's a great like snack that you just take and you just stuff in your face until you're so full you can't eat dinner. And yeah, I'm really surprised. I'm not always like this when I do reviews. Like, this is a rare instance where I'm just so surprised. It's kind of hard to do the review. And which I am fine with. I'm totally fine with that. I would much rather have watched this version of this movie than have watched the terrible bad version that I was expecting. So once again, this is a good movie, and it's one of the best movies I've seen of the year so far. And it might even be in the top 10 by the end of the year. I mean, if it is, that's going to be even more surprising. And so I really hope that they make a sequel, because I would definitely love to see one to this movie. You know, I hope this just isn't a one-and-done thing, because there have been far worse movies that have gotten sequels than this. And by the way, I think that the part where I really knew that this movie was good was the scene where we really got to know the characters. And there were, certain scenes where they would just stop and sit and talk. And it really made you feel that you were on this adventure with real people, real characters. And it made me think, this is just so much more than just a generic MCU movie. This is just so much more than a throwaway movie. This is, at the very least, a mid-level action adventure family comedy movie. And yeah, I'm surprised. I'm just so thrown off guard that I could probably redo this review and it wouldn't be any better, because I'm just so surprised and shocked that it's really hard to say anything. It's like, okay, it was good, okay? Bye. And so please like this video, comment, and feel free to tell me how bad of a review this was and how all over the place it was. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.